Oh, awesome. All right. Well, I guess you guys are already on stage. Cool. Well, never mind then. All right. Great first day. Lots of cool presentations and conversations in the chat. Yeah, and then we have our upcoming session. But before we do that, just a little bit of housekeeping. Just a reminder that we do have an hour of networking after the session is completely finished. So if you can, feel free to stick around, take advantage of these little breakout tables, meet one another, share information, share resources. But yeah, definitely stick around for the networking session coming up at 2 o'clock Pacific, 5 Eastern, and whatever other time in your time zone. And then one other thing that I want to just call out to, if you are in fact having any issues with AirMeet or anything else, please email us at hello@climatedesigners.org. All right, so let's kick things off. All right, so the session you're about to experience will push your creativity to new places. We need different ways to address our climate crisis if we really want to create a better world. Humans got us into this mess, and we need to know that we need to get out of it. Yet we're the ones standing in our own way. Designers need new approaches that will help us co-create a world where all living species thrive in harmony with one another. And one way of doing this is to learn and incorporate new creative processes into our work. We must go beyond best practices and embrace the uncertainty so that those new, unfamiliar, maybe even weird ideas can be explored, because there might be something in there within those ideas that can unlock a new path towards a joyful, equitable, loving, and regenerative civilization. I've been working with John Bielenberg since 2009. His Think Wrong process has helped me and countless other designers unlock new ways of seeing the world and the work that we do. It is because of this I wanted to bring the Think Wrong process into the climate space. I co-founded the Determine with Sarah Harrison to draw a line in the sand to only work with people addressing our climate crisis. Typical climate organizations default to tired, expected, safe solutions. This isn't working. Creatives need to put a flag in the ground to empower and encourage the climate startups, the nonprofits, the foundations, others in the climate space to go beyond the expected, and to encourage those on the front lines of the climate crisis to be bold in their work so that it stands out, so that they get the support that they need in order to have an even greater impact. So I'm really stoked to have John Bielenberg and Brent Williams, his business partner, who I've known since, I think, 2005, join us during our first session at the party to share their creative process with all of us. So, gentlemen, welcome.
Thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. It's great to be here.
Absolutely. How's the party going? All right. Hey, listen, a couple of housekeeping things real quick. Keep your chat open, and we'll address things as they move forward, and then we'll figure that out as well. And we're all new to the AirMeet thing, so thankfully we've got some people on the back end that are going to be able to help us with that. So with that, we'll get started with a little presentation.
Okay, I'm just gonna try to get this going. Okay, Brent, can you see that?
Looks good, I think. Yeah, there we go.
Okay, good. Can you see me too?
Yeah, we're kind of off to the side there.
Oh, okay, because I can't see that. So we're going to talk to you a little bit about this new tool we have called Thinknado. As Mark said, I'm John Bielenberg, and my background is graphic design. I spent 30 plus years in San Francisco doing branding and design work for large corporations. But for the past 10 years, I've really shifted to the creative space and trying to get people to come up with new ideas and break their synaptic connections and patterns. Brant, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. John and I met several years ago now, and Mark and I both were teaching at California College of the Arts, as was John, running a really cool program we all met a few years ago. My background is more on the business side, although I've always run creative departments. I was a CMO of a Fortune 250 company for a bunch of years, and then did entrepreneurial work both in and out of big companies. Spent some time at Apple and Microsoft in the early days, and so we came together to create something that I think is pretty powerful, and you're going to hear all about it today. So, thanks for having us.
Okay, I'm going to start with the good news. The future will not look like the past. I think that's probably a good thing. The bad news is the future will not look like the past. So we've got these big, huge, unprecedented challenges like climate, CO2 in the atmosphere, driving up the temperature, which causes extreme weather. I'm going to show you a few charts here. They all look like hockey sticks. They're exponential curves, right? They're not just gradual. They go up dramatically at the end. We have a big spike in population, looks almost exactly like CO2 in the atmosphere. Might not feel this in the Western world, but globally, we're populating at an unprecedented rate. We have something called the sixth extinction going on, and it maps almost exactly to human population. So as more people populate the planet, puts pressure on the natural systems, and the creatures suffer. We have globalization going on, so GDP is increasing globally. Again, not necessarily a bad thing, but it puts more pressure as people have more money to spend on stuff, just like we have in the United States. There's something called ecological debt. We use up all the Earth's resources that are replenished every year earlier and earlier. So we're going into this ecological debt sooner and sooner in the year. And now we all know there's a global pandemic, again, an exponential curve. So all of these things are unprecedented in human history, that we're going to have to deal with these events. So what we're focused on is how we can go from the way things are to the way things need to be. Typically what happens, Brant, do you want to?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it cognitively, what we do is we come up with these crazy ideas, and it literally happens like a eureka moment in some cases. In other cases, it sort of evolves. But we come up with a new idea, and then immediately we're slammed down, and we're wham, it happens, right? You get shut down, and the lawyers say you can't do it, and people just say you're nuts. You can't possibly, do that, or cultural, sort of conspires against us, and people say, well, let me play the devil's advocate, or we could never do that because our customers wouldn't tolerate it, or the society wouldn't allow it. But the reality is that we really need to take a step back, and we have to ask why that is. Why does that happen? What are the causes for that? And there's a lot of reasons why that happens. So culturally, there could be a reason, and legally, there could be a reason. But in most cases, you could do an exploration as to why that happens. So let's keep going. So we're all, actually, John, I'd like you to take this next part, because I think it kind of dovetails into the part that we're going to jump into.
Sure. So we're all victims of pre-existing pathways. A good example of this is surfer gets attacked by a shark in South Africa, widely reported on the news, and people in Los Angeles stay out of the water. So even though there's no statistical correlation between shark attacks, South Africa, stay off the beach in LA, here's what's happening in your brain. A, shark attack, bad. We all think that's a really bad thing to happen. There's a neural pathway superhighway in your brain that says stay out of the water, right? So even though it's irrational, we're following this pre-existing pathway, whether we know it or not. Our brains are doing this all the time. Culture conspires against new ideas and innovation. When you get a lot of brains all thinking along the same pathways, that will conspire against creativity. Status quo acts like gravity. So this line is the way things are, business as usual. Somebody comes up with a big, bold idea. It'll the status quo will act like gravity, trying to bring that arrow down into alignment with the way things are. Traditional problem-solving methods won't work to address these big challenges. They operate in the quadrant of the certain and the known. So this is the comfort zone. The challenges are certain, solutions are known, it's predictable. Large organizations, religions, countries, corporations, this is where they want to be because it's predictable. Down in the lower left corner is what we call tornado thinking. So this is working in a zone that is sometimes uncomfortable, but it's wildly creative and it's uncertain. You don't know exactly where it's going. There are natural tornado thinkers, Steve Jobs, obviously, and with Apple, Jane Goodall in science with her work with chimpanzees, Bjork in music, George O'Keeffe in art, Muhammad Ali in sports, Yvonne Chouinard withal to actually get them into the world. So we start thinking about how we have physical conditioning. So you have gym class in school, we have gyms all over, people run, they do sports, but we really don't facilitate creative conditioning. So why do we do it physically, which is good for your body, but we really don't do it with our brains? We don't have something called creative conditioning. 2003, I started a program that Mark O'Brien was in called Project M, where I would gather a group of young creative people and we would go to a distressed place, figure out a project was involved in called Blank Lab, Reykjavik, Iceland, after their financial collapse. A great project called Pizza Farm, which I've always thought would be a good business venture. This is Detroit. We built horseshoe pits in a vacant field. This is the Gulf Coast of Alabama after the BP oil spill. So after about 20 years of running these Project M sessions, Brant and I came up with this methodology we call Thinknado, which unlocks the creative potential in your brain to solve big challenges. So Brant, maybe you can take us through this process.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, it's a really simple process. And the idea here is that we're trying to make things as easy as we possibly can to challenge that creative conditioning and that creative muscle and condition your brain to come up with new solutions and new ideas. And it starts with wait, why. The act of actually waiting is something that is really key to this. If we can take a pause in a moment, John talked about the synaptic connections that happen in your brain. We typically look at a problem or a challenge and say, oh, I see something that's familiar with that, and we'll make a quick connection and say, I'm going to solve that problem this way. And that's may not be the best way to do it. So I'm hearing something. I don't know if anybody else is hearing that.
I hear it too. I don't know. What is that?
Something's ringing. Somebody's ringing. I don't know what that is.
Huh. Is it in the... It's nothing I have.
Me either.
Is it in the program, the air meet?
I don't know. Go to the back, the slide before. John, maybe if you try muting. It's coming from your house, somebody said.
I have no idea what that is. Well, keep going.
John, why don't you mute yourself? It's an alarm of some sort. Is it on your computer?
Yeah, it's
a tornado warning. Okay, it's muted now, so I don't know what that was.
Well, it'll start if I'm speaking.
Oh, okay. So mute yourself for a couple of minutes there, and we'll figure that out.
Well, I can't hear you.
No, if you mute your down at the bottom, there's a little microphone button.
I don't have any of that on my controls.
Okay, let's see how we're going to do this. On screen share. Well, I'm going to talk over it. So, yeah, if we log off and log on again, then we're going to lose all the presentation. So we've got some time to do this. So let's. I'm going to let John try to figure that out. It's lower now. I don't know if you reduced your volume or not. Okay, if I talk, in chat, let me know because I can talk over that. Can you hear me okay, or is it just too distracting? Okay, so I'm going to talk over it. So the notion of waiting, the whole idea of waiting is to take a pause and just stop, because we tend to, as humans, we want to solve problems quickly. It's efficient, it's fast, we know how to do it, and let's move on. That's just a normal human behavior. But the act of waiting and taking a pause and examining why we're doing something, actually asking the question, why is that? And there could be really, really good reasons as to why something is the way it is. Like I said before, it could be cultural, it could be legal, it could be practice, it could be convention, it could be all kinds of reasons. But the reality is this step is challenging that idea, not challenging it with a solution, but challenging why. And so the question we ask is, why are we doing the same thing over and over again? Why is it that way? Why do we not live with old people? Why do we all have cars? Why does everybody have to have a separate bedroom? Why? Right? The next step is maybe. So you stop, you take assessment, and you say maybe. And the phrase that comes to mind is maybe it's possible to. And then you start filling that out. So a good prompt would be, maybe it's possible to create something completely new, or maybe it's possible to use that resource in a different way. Maybe it's possible to find a new person or a new collaboration. So that part is very, very important. Maybe it's possible to, and you ... ellipsis, and you fill in the blank. And we're going to be doing this in a moment. So the next step, we actually look at it and say, well, what if? And this is where it kind of gets insane. This is where you start postulating ideas. You come up with ideas that really stretch that creative muscle, and we stretch it in such a way where we come up with a bunch of possibilities. And so a Thinknado is like a tornado, where it picks up random things. It's sort of organized chaos, right? It's spinning and it follows some path that only they know what they're doing. It's not a cognitive thing, but the tornado picks up stuff and then moves it around. So maybe if I could trick my mind into, what if I could trick my mind into thinking wrong about a particular solution? But this what if step is about pulling in random ideas and figuring out if in fact it's insane or it's actually something that we could do. The last step is try this. And this is where you take some of these ideas and you test them. You make a series of small bets and you have an idea of what you're going to be doing could in fact work, or maybe it's just a crazy idea that's worthy of testing to see how crazy it is. And private space flight seemed like a pretty crazy idea, and there's a bunch of people doing it now. So that's a pretty interesting idea, where you take a crazy idea and you test it with a small bet. Okay. And I'm looking at the chat. Yeah, whys and what ifs. Exactly. The why thing is where we tell people to channel their innermost 3-year-old. And that is such a fun thing to do. We've done this with young kids, and it's the most fun thing to do with young kids because they have no preconceived knowledge of what they should do. And look, there's a picture of Mark.
Yeah, so I'm going to show a few projects so you can see how this actually works. The first was called Not a Bike. And the challenge statement was, maybe it's possible to get young people to ride bikes for everyday transportation. This happened to be at the beginning of what was called the fixed gear phenomenon. So there were these one-speed messenger bikes, and we thought, well, if we can just ride the wave of interest in fixed gear, maybe we can get more people in urban areas to ride bikes. So we came up with this concept, did a big newsprint piece, less cars, gas, smog, less is more, independence, health, freedom, you are nada, put up a website, nadabike.com. And the way it worked was you paid $100 to you wanted to build it up or how you wanted to paint it. And the thinking was if you had to build your bike from scratch, you'd be more invested in it, you'd use it more, you'd take care of it more than you would otherwise. And we had ordered 150 frames from Taiwan and sold out almost immediately. And it was time to reorder, and thought, this is crazy that we're trying to get people on bikes, but ordering these frames from Taiwan that get shipped over. And I'd read about this guy, Marty Odlin, in the center of the screen, who had started something called the Bamboo Bike Studio in Brooklyn. And he was teaching people how to build bikes out of bamboo. And we noticed there was bamboo growing just 100 feet from our studio that we had in Alabama. So Marty came down, helped us figure out how to harvest the bamboo. You flame treat it to get the moisture out. This was our workshop we set up, the bike lab, and then started making these bamboo bikes using Alabama bamboo and the technique from the Bamboo Bike Studio in New York. So it looks really funky, like electrical tape. It's actually carbon fiber tape dipped in epoxy. That's what the bikes look like. I think that's actually Mark's bike. He and 3 others built bikes in Alabama and then rode them to San Francisco to promote the project. And we thought, well, maybe it's bigger than just bikes. Maybe we could get Alabama to grow bamboo, because it's a miracle plant, doesn't require pesticides or water, grows like 5 feet a day in the growing season. So we made up this brand called Alabamboo. And then this guy got involved. He's the industrial design professor at the University of Kansas. And he said, there's got to be a better way to make bikes out of bamboo. And he came up with this called the hex tube, which uses bamboo slats that are epoxied around the carbon fiber core. Looks like that. And what this allowed is a stronger, a lighter tube, but also a consistent shape. To do a Kickstarter campaign we called Semester Bicycles to manufacture these bikes down in Alabama. We ended up raising about $60,000 to get that going and start building bikes down in Alabama. And Lance and his students at the University of Kansas kept iterating on it with commuter bikes, different structural technique there. This was a super cool one that uses woven bamboo around the carbon fiber core. It was way too flexy for a frame, but it did work really well for fenders and skateboard decks. So we decided to do another Kickstarter campaign and build these, we call them Beacon Alley skateboard decks, and raised a bunch of money for that too. And so you can see how this project evolved through the try this process into something we never could have imagined, starting with get people on bikes, to the steel nada frames, to the bamboo frames, then to the bamboo skateboards. And really it morphed into a economic development program more than a bike program. Here's another project for a company called SodaStream that makes bubbly water. You probably have seen those around. And maybe it's possible was, how do you eliminate bottles and cans from the beverage market? People like to have sparkling beverage, so maybe it's possible to get them to shift to something like SodaStream. This is Daniel Birnbaum, who is the CEO, the most fearless CEO I've ever worked with. So here's why SodaStream matters. One family, 5 years, almost 11,000 bottles and cans in the landfill. This is Tucker Nichols. He's an artist we brought into the workshop. A lot of times we bring in what we call creative insurgents to help the creative energy with the group. Tucker's an artist, so as he was listening to what was going on, he's doing these drawings and putting them up around the room. And that ended up inspiring the whole project when he put up this one. So them is Big Soda driving around, bottles and cans filled with mostly water in their big trucks, and SodaStream is in the balloon there, freeing the bubbles from the tyranny of the bottle. So after that, we did this internal film, which I'm going to show, which gave us kind of the brand positioning we needed.
What is it about bubbles? We love them. From bubble machines to bubble baths, we can't get enough. Because when it comes to bubbles, there's no such thing as a crowd. Sure, a single bubble is fun, but 100 is better and 1,000 is a festival for the senses. So it makes sense that when bubbles met beverages, it was an instant love affair that over time created some of the biggest companies on earth. In those early days, it seemed like nothing could go wrong. The entire world was innocently awash in the refreshing release of bursting bubbles. Thousands of soda jerks served millions of sodas containing trillions of bubbles every day. And that's when something happened. They did it. They actually did it. The big soda companies bottled up the bubbles. At first it seemed like it would be okay.
Biggest bottle of Coke you ever saw!
Sure, it was a little less social and a little less special, but at least it was more bubbles more of the time. So we bought it, and bought it, and bought it. We bought everything that Big Soda was selling. Until the day came when somebody looked up and noticed that we were all surrounded by empty bottles. Not millions of bottles, not billions of bottles, but trillions of empty bottles. Enough bottles every single day to reach from New York to LA. Bottles that wound up not just in our landfills, but in our oceans and rivers and parks. They fouled our water and leached poison gas into our air. Give me a Coke. We wanted bubbles, but the soda industry gave us bottles. Enough bottles to ruin just about everything. When we finally spoke up and said that something had to be done, Big Soda acted like they were oblivious to our problem. No bottle, no bubbles, they said. It's just the way it is.
Well, hey, Big Soda, we hear you. And guess what? We're not buying what you are selling anymore.
We found a new way to free the bubble from the bottle, a way to make our seas, our parks, and our air free from your mess, a way to live in a world free from your dirty bottling plants, a way to free our highways of all those logo-covered trucks spewing CO2, a way to make our bodies free of your high fructose corn syrup and aspartame.
Did you hear that?
That sound is us, and about 5 million of our friends unbottling a revolution on your dirty, disrespectful, and destructive dairy. We are SodaStream, and we are here to set the bubbles free.
So based on that, we produced 3 Super Bowl commercials. I'm going to show the first one, which was actually banned in the UK for denigrating the beverage industry, but we were able to show it here. So this shows how that strategy ended up being implemented.
With SodaStream, you can save 2,000 bottles a year. If you love the bubbles, set them free. SodaStream.
I'm going to show one more project here that we did in Montana. Brant and I ran a program. Mark was involved in this. And the challenge was, maybe it's possible to get the USA to grow industrial hemp. Hemp, much like bamboo, is this miracle plant that's been villainized because of the anti-marijuana movement that started in the 50s. But this is industrial hemp, which doesn't have the same THC in it. Here's the group. And we found out that at that time, Montana was the #1 hemp grower in the United States for industrial hemp. And so we created this brand we call Big Hemp, sort of a take on Big Pharma or Big Oil or Big Soda, to promote this idea of hemp production. And we made a video, which I'll show here, a website, and the video.
We went west with a vision. Explorers, farmers, makers, all called to this new frontier. Drawn by its valleys and peaks, its life carried by the rivers that run wild. Calloused hand over calloused hand, we sowed ourselves to the land, to build a world carved in our minds. We loved this land, land of the bison, land of the bears, the land of the trout, the wolves, the elk. And then we got lost, following the road most traveled, pushing away the land that shaped us, becoming just a destination. We're found when we feel the most lost, when everyone else wants to head back. When they ask, where are you going? That's when we're right where we need to be. It's where we're home. Back to our roots, forging the path to the future no one else can see. Building the world on our back. That's exactly how we want it. In Montana, we grow against the grain. We are Big Hemp.
Walking around town thinking about someone else. It's a nice change to take the focus off myself. Seeing good in things I only usually see bad. Seeing happy faces where I...
So I just wanted to show a few projects so you can see how this isn't just an academic endeavor or process. It actually leads to creative solutions. So I hope that helps a little bit. So Brant and I are going to lead you through a Thinknado here. And I'm going to stop sharing this screen if I can. Oops. Okay. So, Brant, do you want to describe the...
Sure. So the toolkit that we're going to be using, you saw a little picture of it, is this box, and it's a series of cards, and I'll just show you that real quick like that. So we can go into this a little bit later, but we've picked a couple of cards out that we're going to use now, and we're going to start with wait, why? And the prompt is going to be very simple. And we're going to go into table groups in just a moment. But when you pick a card, that's the wait, why card, you get this. And we've pre-selected this. So today's theme is going to be climate. And if you see down at the bottom there, it says, maybe it's possible to. So what we're going to do now is we're going to actually take this prompt, climate, maybe it's possible to, and we're going to come up with a challenge statement. So what we're going to do is we're going to break into table groups now, and we're going to come up with a challenge statement. And we're going to spend 10 minutes doing that. And then we're all going to come back, and you're going to share with us what your challenge statement is. The idea here is to think big. Think big and bold. Don't let anything constrain you. Maybe it's possible too with the prompt of climate. It doesn't have to be literal. It can be metaphoric, but that's the prompt. If you've got any questions, type them in the chat, or you can raise your hand. And if you have any questions, we can talk about that. But the idea here is to come up with a challenge statement that is something that we're going to work on, because the next part of this, after 10 minutes, you give them a challenge statement. Then we're going to go back into table groups, and then we're going to understand and try to look for what if statements. How are we going to look at what this challenge statement is? We expect some very cool, new, big, broad ideas. Okay.
All right. So
I don't see any questions.
All right. Awesome. So we're going to go and take a break. You all are going to be going back into the lounge area, and we're encouraging you all 10 minutes for that. We're encouraging everyone to be in tables of 4 people per table. So we have, I think, 40 or 50 tables in the lounge area. So if you can, just kind of find a table with 3 other people, and you'll see a big join button right there. Do a quick intro, hi, I'm calling in from wherever, and then, go ahead and jump into the exercise. So, take a seat, not join table, take a seat. All right, so let's go ahead, and if you have any questions, put it in the main chat.
We're going to be back in the same group.
Yeah, we will. I'll tell people that. Yeah. All right, welcome back, everyone. Don't freak out if you're in mid-thought, all good. You will be put back in the same tables when we go back again, so just know that. So what we're going to do now, we'll have a few minutes of people coming on stage to share out any ideas. So if you go to the right-hand side of the browser window, you'll see an icon, a hand icon, raised hand. You'll go ahead and click that, and you'll be put in a queue for me to invite you on stage to share out your ideas or thoughts. So don't be shy.
And so what we want to do now is raise your hand. We'll call on you, and you're going to share out your challenge statement. Maybe it's possible too, and then you can finish that. And we're going to go to each table group and hear everybody's. Okay.
All right. First up is Christine. Hey, Christine.
Hey, do I put my video on too?
You don't have to. It's up to you.
All right, I'll go ahead and do it. I'll be brave. So we ended up with a table of 5. So we thought we were already going outside the norm with our larger group. And we first talked about the problem with takeout food and having reusable containers, but then we switched over to something different because there are a lot of solutions for that are already coming out. And that was basically, what if we found a way to turn off more lights at night and cut into the light pollution that is definitely unnecessary in a lot of cases. Of course, there are safety issues in some cases, but there are a lot of ways to combat the overall lighting that is consuming our night skies.
Great. Maybe it's possible to turn off more lights and reduce light pollution.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Thanks.
Cool. Thanks, Christine.
Choo-choo train.
Shanabi, are you there?
Yeah. Hello.
Okay. Good to see you.
Good to see you again. I'm sorry for the train which is going. I'll just take a minute, or if someone else wants to go, I can go next because the train is going.
All good. It sounds better than John's alarm, so let's just go with it. Go ahead.
Okay. So I was on the table with Mary Anderson and Bianca Lima, and we started thinking about maybe we can have more conscious consumption or work towards behavior change so that we can reduce the waste and inspire people to have conscious consumption in everyday life. So we're thinking about designing conscious intervention or looking to intervene through education, training, creating a service or a strategy around it. And then our what if behind it was what if we build relationship with products or allow people to build a kind of relationship with products, providing incentives when the products are reused. If someone reuses your product, you get some incentive. What if we can develop an annual report which is designed to celebrate what has been done on a local level? This is to get the community more inclusive as a part of community building. Or what if we create a network of local products where people can figure out what is the climate friendly product or cautious consumption happening around it? So that's something we were thinking about.
Okay. That's great. Sorry, I got the maybe it's possible to have more conscious consumption in everyday life. So that's your maybe. That's your maybe it's possible.
Yes.
Perfect.
Yes.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks.
That was a very long train.
That was. Aaron, you should be getting your mic. We're waiting on Aaron. Aaron Jeffley, if I'm pronouncing it right. Maybe not. Come back to us, Aaron. You might have some issues on your end. Roseanne, here we go. Here you are.
Hello.
Hey.
So I was at table 2 and we had a lot of energy just around, we started talking quite a bit about just like land and conservation. And our statement ended up being maybe it's possible for everyone to have a self-sustaining garden that includes human, or that can feed humans and non-humans. So that's where I think that's where we landed before we got.
I like that. I like the non-human part because of the amount of waste that goes into dog food and cat food production is just staggering.
Mm.
Yeah.
Cool. That's great.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah, Aubrey.
Hey, Aubrey.
Hi, Aubrey.
So I was on table 1, and we began by talking about regenerative farming. And then moving from there, we ended up with kind of a statement of what if we could eat all packaging?
Great.
I like that.
What if we could? That would be interesting. Awesome.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right.
Thanks.
So we have about 2 more in the queue. Is that cool, guys?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Karen, you're up.
Oh, okay. Hey, everyone. So we're in table 4 with John, Caitlin, and Tanya, and we started going off on maybe it's possible to infuse sustainable and regenerative practices with the K-12 generation as a way of life with equity, with equality, inclusivity, and diversity.
We'd better do that.
Right.
Or else we're all in trouble.
All right.
Cool.
Thanks,
That's a great one. And there's one in the chat there. It's anyone, blah, 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 blah. Maybe it's possible to use brand collective to drive legislation towards limiting corporate power and put less accountability on the consumer and more on our corporate overlords. Okay. That's a great one too.
Yeah.
Anybody else in the queue?
Yeah, Aaron, you were in the queue. Do you want to go back? Okay, here we go. Let's try this again. All right, Aaron, looks like we're having issues. Maybe you just type in your response in the chat. Yeah, sorry about that, Aaron.
Yeah, type it out. That'd be great.
Yeah, type it out.
I just noticed, John, you moved to Billings, USA, and I moved to Billings, USA. I don't live in Billings. I've changed it 3 times in Airmean.
Maybe the Russians hacked y'all.
Okay, it's okay.
All right.
Okay, so Rachel said, maybe we can stop blaming the little guy. How to push the responsibility upstream to create policy change to destroy capitalism. Okay.
Yep, sounds about right with Rachel. Yep. All right, cool. All right, gentlemen, let's go.
Let's go to the next step. John, you want to give the next prompt?
Yeah, sure. So, Brent described how this works a little bit. I'll just show you a few more of the Wait Why cards. So they're all different topics. You guys got climate, but we have evil, war, surprise, loneliness. So there's a whole bunch of topics. So once you come up with your maybe it's possible statement, you pick one black what if card and one white what if card. And the black ones have a picture on them. In this case, someone picking peaches. And the white ones have a word on it. So this particular prompt would be global peaches or global peach picking. So we're going to just give you one since you can't pick them out yourself. And it is sneaky tomato. Okay, sneaky tomato. So what you do now is, this is a random prompt to push you into creative idea generation, right? So there's no correlation between sneaky tomato and your maybe it's possible statements, right? How to solve that. So what you have to do is your brain has to form new neural pathways, to connect these things. So this is a device, sneaky tomato, is just to make you start idea generation in a place that's completely random. Because otherwise what would happen, your brain would go immediately to a file folder full of all kinds of ideas related to the subject, all kinds of solutions, right? So we don't want to do that. We want to start with sneaky tomato. Brant, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, and the key here is that when you look at a word like sneaky, you can use it very, very literally, or you can use it figuratively as to what the meaning of sneaky could be, or the intent of sneaky. And we all know that tomatoes can be extremely sneaky in a literal sense. But joking aside, the tomato picture has also got other elements in it too, right? It's got the tomato, it's got the stalk, it got harvested, it got clipped. There are leaves that are dried up. There are things on here that could also be used figuratively as you create these sort of disparate connections. So don't think you have to use them exactly the way they are, but use them in a way that would allow you to do it. So John, Mark just posted something. What can you make from this? What might be sneaky? But those are the prompts you're going to use to go to the what if stage. So now you've got a challenge statement, and you're going to look for random ideas that are going to help you form ideas that would support the solution towards your maybe it's possible statement.
So the crazier and more interesting, the better. And I'm going to give you one more option. So you can choose either sneaky tomato or deranged water slide. Right.
So those are your two.
Yeah, you can pick one of these. Deranged water park or water slide, and sneaky tomato.
Okay. We're going to spend, we wrap at 3, it's in the half an hour, right, Mark? Okay. So let's spend 20 minutes doing this, and then we'll come back and we'll share out for the last 10 minutes of the session, correct?
All right. Have
All right.
fun, y'all. And again, you'll go back into the same tables. So.
All right. And if you have questions, put them in the chat.
Los Feliz.
Oh, that's right. Los Feliz.
Did Geneva go with you on the hike?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We caught up on Sunday.
Oh, good.
Yeah, just her and I. All right.
A few
Let's
minutes
do
and
it.
we're going to hear these what if nutty ideas.
All right, Brianna, you're up.
Sweet. I told my team I would go first and try to be first. So I forget what table we were at. I think 5. But we went with both the deranged water slides and the sneaky tomatoes. And so our whole thing was maybe climate is possible to make it human. So we came up with the idea for a TV show where the water park represents humanity. It's like hard plastic that's hard to like recycle. It's like water that's heavily chemicalized, where it could have been just, we're like trying to create this utopia that and replicate this like natural thing that you could go to like a national park for that happens naturally in the real world, but we're like making a corporation. And then the tomato, so the whole thing was there's this tomato and we're at this water park and it's always sunny in Philadelphia. Charlie brings like a tomato sandwich to this water park. Then COVID-19 happens. It's a little thing. Not sure if you guys heard about it. The pandemic. Then water parks like go abandoned because there's no people to upkeep it. So this rotten like tomato sandwich goes and starts sprouting its seeds and takes over this water park, creating this like story of narrative of like nature slowly reclaiming what humanity has taken for granted and has created this like whole terrible thing. And so we created this whole like TV show narrative plot line of like humanity being this like anarchy, or like this, not anarchy, that's the tomato, but yeah, just creating like a human kind of palatable like experience of like the environment and climate.
I like it.
Yeah, I think that's a really good example of how the random prompts push you somewhere you'd never go before otherwise.
Mm-hmm. We had a lot of fun.
Okay.
That's the point.
Yeah, if we were going to keep going after this, if we had time, we'd get into the try this, where you go, okay, well, that's a big idea. How can you smallify it and actually prototype it? How can you try it? So that to kind of bring it into the real world would be our next step.
Mm-hmm.
We could create little like seed bombs and just throw them out all the water parks and like golf landscapes that are currently unused right now. Guys, guerrilla gardening. I see it in the chat. I stole it.
There you go.
You could create a what's the Aborigines use the blowpipe?
Yeah, like one of those dark like yeah.
with seeds and fertilizer in it.
Or shirt cannon.
There you go.
There you go. All right, thanks, Brianna.
All right.
Yep.
Who's next?
Bianca. Hey, Bianca.
Hi. So our group had a maybe it is possible to have conscious consumerism in everyday life. And our what if is, what if we design an app to create everyday mundane tasks more transparent to alleviate over planning? Our slogan is, footprint doesn't have to be sneaky. Know how far your tomato has traveled. The consumer products that we would feature in this app would be consumer products that would be easy to live with, build juicy experiences, have multi-purposes usage, and have cradle-to-cradle impact. The goal of our app is to build seamless planning as an intervention to mundane everyday tasks. And we have categorized our app's with two ways of thinking. We have mundane products and self-care products. Mundane products would be anything from toothpaste, cleaning supplies, body care, kitchen supplies, school supplies, snacks, transportation supplies, household supplies. And our self-care products would be more oriented towards entertainment, like toys, clothes, and if you have pets, it would be more about pet care.
I like it.
Thanks.
Yeah.
That's good.
Great.
And that would be a fun one to test, right? You could actually do that on a small scale and do a sourcing thing and a score. And yeah, it's great.
Thanks.
All right. Awesome. Thanks, Bianca.
Okay, we've only got a couple more minutes left, Mark. I don't want to be conscious of our time.
Hi.
Hey.
Can everyone hear me? Oh,
Yeah.
Hi. So we had a lot of fun with this one. We were trying to figure out a way to push the onus upstream to politicians, policy, and corporations. And so we thought that a deranged water slide was the perfect vehicle for this. We came up with a lot of ideas that basically create a lot of damage for policymakers' homes. So like if you're a climate denier and you work for the government, maybe we flood your house. But then we brought it in, like if you're denying that there's sea level rise, like maybe we flood your house. But then we brought it a little bit smaller and we were like, okay, or maybe we just buy up the real estate around your house and put up signs kind of shaming you into like being responsible. We also thought about the idea of an alarm. So if you sign up to be, or if you take an oath to be a public servant, you get an alarm every time one of your constituents doesn't recycle something properly. So just like how John had the alarm going off during this presentation, they would have that all day long.
Shaming.
Another one was the idea we kind of stole from like glitter bombing, except it would just be like trash bombing. So if you were a corporation and you got in trouble for polluting, you know, the Gulf or something, you would go to your office the next day and find out that it was filled with all of the garbage that you have created. Then you couldn't physically get in the door to do your dirty, dirty work. The other last idea, I mean, we had a lot of ideas, but the other one that I think that we liked was this idea about banks that are funding pipelines being built and how bank tellers have that little like chute that goes like, into the bank. So you just fill up plastic bottles with the oil from the pipelines that they're funding and like suck it back into the bank. We were thinking very wrong.
Yeah, no, that's really, those are really good. I like that.
I mean, some of these have actually happened. Like I was saying that there was an oil spill in the 70s in Santa Barbara, and that all of the citizens of Santa Barbara actually filled plastic bottles with the oil on the beach and sent it to their representatives. So like these things have and are happening. So I think that it just needs to be done by larger numbers of us.
Yeah, ship the dead birds.
In New York City, they used to have this giant inflatable rat that the unions would put in front of companies that somehow were kind of violating labor laws. And they were huge, you know, it was like the size of a city bus. And the companies hated it. Like they hated that they would get singled out like that.
Well, I was also thinking about the session that you did in Iceland with all the coins on the ground in front of the banks.
Yeah, yeah.
The massive acts of civil disobedience are always good for, yeah. I think that's great. Those are great. Well, we're out of time,
Very
Mark.
cool.
I really appreciate you taking the time. Everybody who joined in, it was fantastic. We didn't get to see everybody. You got to see us, but we didn't get to see you. So thank you so much. Just as a quick, little quick plug, these are available. The boxes of cards, the toolkit is available for purchase. So you can actually get there's 162 cards with instructions to follow. So if it's something you're interested in, you can go to thinknado.com. You can send John or me an email, Brant, BRANDT at thinknado.com, John, JOHN at thinknado.com. Thanks, Mark.
Gentlemen, as always, appreciate your time and your crazy process and ideas. Just a reminder for those who can stay, we have our first networking session for the next hour, so we can go back to the lounge and just, for those there's a few people that had their hand raised. So maybe if you want to go to your table, we can maybe, hear your ideas. But I just want to be respectful of everyone's time. So this would be a good cutoff time right now. Again, thanks, John and Brand, for kicking off our interactive sessions today. For those who are listening, we have, I think we have one tomorrow, and I don't know. We have a ton over the next few days. But yeah, can't wait to meet you all in the networking session. John, Brand, feel free to stick around and meet some of these folks.
Yeah, I'll stick around for sure. And if anybody wants to talk more about it, absolutely.
All right, cool. Thanks, Al.
Thanks.
Bye.